A company has introduced its first triangular-shaped matzah to be used to make matzah pizza for Passover. Perfect timing for the recently converted Teenage Mutant Hasidim turtles. The Trump Report starts now!
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin!
Oh, that's right. Welcome to the Trump Report, where the puns are aplenty. I'm Christian Bladt on Twitter at ChristianDMZ. Joined as always by Scott Moore at SMan80. And in between us, sitting in once again, welcome back, Brooke Solis-Taylor.
Brooke Solis-Taylor.
We get them all in there, right?
All of
But
them.
here's the thing that confuses me. The Twitter, at Brooke Solis-TV.
Brooke Solis-TV. Solis is my mom's last name.
Okay.
Taylor's the married, now divorced name. But my daughter's last name, I'll figure it all out eventually.
Excellent. So really, you should just legally change your name to at Brooke Solis-TV, because in this day and age,
I like the
your,
TV.
Your,
Right.
Yeah, your online handle is what's really important.
That's what matters now,
Exactly.
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 As you know.
So we had, oh, wait, before we dive in, the show's Twitter. I don't know. What am I going to have to do to get more of you to follow this show on Twitter? It's at Trump Report ABTV. I'm thinking that one week I'm just going to sit here and watch the Twitter count go up. And it's like, if it doesn't get up to 100, we're just not going to start the show. But anyway, please follow us there, like us, comment on YouTube, and of course, rate, comment on iTunes as well. All those things help. Anyway, had a fun little song there. The Gap Band, You Dropped a Bomb on Me, which is in reference to something that's a little bit less fun, but it's where we're going to start. The Syrian bombing last week, President Trump sent 59 Tomahawk missiles straight at Syria, and this obviously came on the heels of those terrible videos that we actually talked a little bit about last week that I'm not going to lie, I didn't actually watch them. It's too upsetting to me. When I
didn't
read
either.
what's in them, I'm like, okay, that's terrible. I don't think that's fake news. I believe these are terrible videos. I don't need to see these sorts of things. But I'm going to go first. I, for one, say it's about damn time, because this has been going on in Syria for a very long time. And there's obviously a lot of talk about the Syrian refugee crisis. And it's like, well, if they don't have to leave, maybe they can stay there. But, there was nothing happening. And I don't know that President Trump is the person I expect to lead us into a skirmish. This is certainly not a war yet. Lead us into a skirmish with Syria, but I felt like somebody had to do something. And I don't know that this action is exactly what I feel like is the right thing. I felt like somebody needed to do something. And so when I heard, I'm like, okay, I'm a little scared of what happens next. But I was glad that somebody finally did something, because we've heard about this for years now. Years and years about all these terrible things going on in Syria. And I think we knew Assad was a bad guy. Scott, when you heard about it, though, what were your thoughts?
Well, I have several thoughts. First, going back to when we first heard about with the Red Line with Obama back in 2013, part of the issue was, and I know Obama was trying to put it back on Congress, so it wasn't just him taking a fall, but he had asked Congress for authority to go in to do some kind of strike against Syria, and Congress couldn't even bother to do that. So then on the flip side, we have Trump as the new president doing something without Congress's approval, and nobody seemed to care. The other issue we have with that, too, is, and I know this will go back and forth, and how Trump changed his mind. And, you have all of his tweets from 2013 basically saying, no, we shouldn't be going into Syria. No, we shouldn't be doing this.
That was very interesting, actually.
And then he says, well, then I saw what happened with the kids, and I changed my mind. I'm like, but that's the same thing that happened 4 years ago, but now you conveniently changed your mind. And then the follow-up to that, too, is that was this strike going to do anything to stop Assad? It felt more like a slap on the wrist and nice political theater for Trump while the Chinese premier was in town, and which to me was sad that we spent millions and millions of dollars on something that really, was it going to change anything in the trajectory of this civil war? Likely not. And the last thing I will say on this, too, is what are the next steps? Because is this just a one-off? Or now, what is he going to do next if Assad says, you know what? I'm gonna, do something even worse this time, and now are we gonna be dragged into something more? Like, where are we going now?
And
Because
I
up till
think-
last week, they were not even gonna go in there.
Right.
So that's another big problem that we have too.
That's the most significant part of this is that
the
okay,
next step?
it's happened, but now what happens
what?
next?
Yeah.
Brooke, your thoughts?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So where's what's the plan? What's the strategy? We are not getting any type of real idea of any type of communication from the White House in terms of where they want to go next. I can see both your perspectives on how you think that Trump should have bombed them, because
I just think it was a long time coming for someone to do
they
something.
passed this
Yes.
line,
Right.
but I just feel like it's like diplomacy versus bombs. Like, do we negotiate? Do we not? And Trump is all over the place. He said in his State of the Union address that we should stay out of other people's countries, right? That we should worry about ourselves. So I do have some concern that he is kind of just doing this for show, but they really have no idea of what foreign policy they'll be putting in place going forward. I also heard that Donald Trump Jr. mentioned that Ivanka was so upset
Yes, I've heard that as well.
about the seeing the children and in such distress and pain and dying, and that it prompted Donald Trump. So it leads me to wonder who's advising him. I mean, he has Mattis, he has Tillerson. Like, who is actually?
Well, as we'll talk about in a little bit, Steve Bannon is advising him a lot less.
Right.
But yeah, obviously his daughter certainly has his ear, and her husband, Jared Kushner.
Certainly.
Those seem to be the flavor of the month.
Exactly.
You know?
Right.
And it's
It's-
literally each month it's been someone
Yeah, it's been something different. It's like, okay, Daddy,
Unfortunately.
you should get
Yeah.
revenge and bomb them. Now, look, we can all agree that what's happening over there is horrible, and
Yes.
what happened to kids and innocent people, it's terrible, and something has to be done. But was this the right measured response? And also, again, for me, I have problems with not allowing any Syrian refugees in the country, and we're
Right.
seeing these children and people that could escape, but yet we'll go over and bomb them and spend millions of dollars to bomb them, but we can't find a way of being able to get some of these people over here in a humane process. So there's just a lot of problems with what transpired last week, for sure.
And then we have the issue of Russia as well.
Right,
Yeah,
And
of
the
course,
role that
which
they're
is
playing.
still in
And
the
whether or not
background,
he
yeah.
tipped off Russia before
Right.
he bombed that area.
Well,
as
and-
well as Tillerson meeting with Putin, whether or not that's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen. I think what I'm seeing is what they ultimately want to do is they want to hopefully convince Russia to be on our side
Right.
rather than Assad's side, and we'll see if that's going to happen.
Right, and sort of the interesting / very surprising thing in here is that Russia is sort of saying like, well, we don't know if this is what really happened in here. They're
Exactly.
already sort of trying to say that well, that's not are these videos fake news? Right? Whatever Russian is for fake news, I feel like it's probably Putin. But anyway, whatever Russian is for fake news, that's sort of what they're saying. And obviously they're like, we don't feel great about this. Syria is our dear friend, which will tell you something that they're such close friends with Syria.
Birds of the same feather.
Yeah, exactly. And Assad, he should be on everyone's Christmas list, obviously, or whatever they celebrate in Russia. And I think it's I think it's very interesting, because the Russia is just sort of saying like, hey, Assad, I've known him for so long. He's not that bad a guy. All right, he's a bad guy, but come on, like we have Putin. Really, what do you expect? So I don't know exactly. And I mean, look, it's good that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is there, and he wants them to back away from the Syrian government, but
Who knows if that's going to
I
happen?
mean, that's
And they're essentially saying that they believe that it was a setup, that it wasn't
Yeah.
actually Assad who dropped these that started this chemical warfare against his own people. We
Right.
don't know that.
Right.
I mean,
No.
I think we do know that it was Assad, don't we?
Well,
I mean-
I think that's still up for debate. They said that what really happened, and that is part of the issue, and it wasn't such a response that's like it would really scare the rest of the world. I know some people have talked about, North Korea and China with the premier there, and shows that Trump is going to have this muscle behind him, but I don't think that strike did anything to make people feel, or any other world leaders take stock and feel any more concerned, except maybe that he just is what we all think. He has no idea what he's doing and changes his mind depending on what way the wind's blowing the next day. So I think that's the only thing they probably got out of that, which would maybe deter some people.
I have to ask, do you guys think that it might have been an effort to maybe distract away from the Russian ties, which we're not talking about right now?
Right, which was actually the
Yeah,
next point
exactly.
I
That
was
was
literally
one of the
about to
things,
make,
yeah.
is the idea that, this is like, oh, no, we're not that tight with Russia. Look, they're so angry with us over Syria. I think there's something to be said for that, but I do think that Russia's not that happy with them. Now, maybe they're not happy for the reason of like, hey, we put you in there. You're supposed to help us. You're not supposed to go after our friends. That's like a half joke.
Putin's holding up the tape.
Yeah, the
hey,
compromise. Yeah, but there is
Dossier.
something to be said to that about distract. You know, as we could say with all this stuff, which we'll get into later with Sean Spicer. Like anytime they do something stupid, are they doing that to distract us from the real issues that are happening? And it is something to think about too. Because there's so much of that, exactly. Because there's so much going on that it's easy to forget or get distracted or sidetracked from
and the
real
Russian
important issues.
The Russian Foreign Ministry is reportedly very concerned that there'll be a similar attack like this on North Korea. And very specifically, they said that. You know, I mean, I think North Korea. I don't think Trump's that upset about anything going on over there. There's no videos that his wife. It's a Freudian slip that he would probably be like, if I should be so lucky. But you know, if there's videos for Ivanka to show him of things happening in North Korea, then maybe he'll change his mind. But that's sort of been status quo for a while.
He has sent these ships over towards
I
the
mean,
Bay of Korea, North Korea, because of them testing these missiles recently. And North Korea is now saying, hey, if that's what you're going to do, don't start, you know.
Yeah,
ready.
no, exactly.
We're ready.
That's much
don't
more.
Start, no, won't be none.
That's a big mess, and I think we would be really mistaken if we decided to go into North Korea and do something, because that's really going to, all hell will break loose in Southeast Asia there if we do that. So I think that would be.
I mean, China
we have
alone
to treat that very lightly.
creates a headache for China.
It does. I mean, a very, very big deal that would spread repercussions.
China owns pretty much everything in this country because of all the bonds that they bought.
Including all those Make America Great hats.
Right, exactly.
And most of Trump's product lines are made in China. So.
Exactly.
And I have a weird feeling that Don Jr. was manufactured in a factory somewhere in China.
Yeah.
I haven't checked to see if there's like a stamp on his foot. Right. Anyway, well, you referenced Sean Spicer, so let's talk about that. In commenting on this, trying to describe how insidious Assad is, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer said that Adolf Hitler, quote, didn't even sink to using chemical weapons, which, of course, relatives of 6 million Jews would disagree. He also said Hitler sent Jews to, I'm using air quotes for anyone listening on iTunes, the Holocaust Center, which, when you call it the Holocaust Center, it's like, all right, that's sort of, you know, like going to admissions when you're in college and you have to do ad drop or something. Well, go check in at the Holocaust Center.
Right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right. Or go to the mall and they're calling, you know, that's it. I mean, the whole, and it's over Passover right now. I mean, the whole thing is just so idiotic. You have to think, is this done as another distraction from anything else? Because how could someone really be that stupid, to be perfectly frank? I mean, how he could really be that dumb and that out of the being a press secretary to make a comment like that.
Well, that is one of the arguments I've seen on Twitter that is like, look, this is another calculated move by the Trump administration where there's, you know, it's basically Holocaust denial, and that's really their agenda. I am of the opinion that no, he really is just that stupid. And, you know, he went out, he's not somebody who should really be speaking off the cuff, Sean Spicer.
He was jumping all over his words.
Yeah.
I think it's twofold. I think that there's some real true stupidity. Of course, there's pressure when you're standing up there and kind of trying to figure out what to say, even though you're the press secretary.
I can't imagine, by the way.
But
that seems like a worse job than president.
It is. No, that's a horrible
Nobody wants that job
especially
right now.
for Trump. I mean, that's a horrible job.
Yeah.
But for any president, that's a tough enough job.
But I think also he is trying to uphold Trump's, I think, view on his position when it comes to the Jewish community. And so I think that's why he fumbled over his words, because as we've seen in the past, haven't really recognized the Jewish community, or even that the Holocaust, they're somewhat of deniers if you think about it with the past statements that they put out there. So I think it's twofold.
It's really scary though to even have that as a thought of people in that circle of power there.
That you
can
think that, or even that we are thinking that
that we're talking about, hey, is it possible?
I mean, that's really scary and sad.
He's appeasing his alt-right constituency.
Well, I mean, I think that there are many instances of him appeasing the alt-right constituency.
Right.
I do feel like this is just Sean Spicer's an idiot. And
He did apologize.
And also now, as we referenced, Jared Kushner being such a confidant, he's like, see, look, I listen to a Jew all the time, So now he's going to be able to say that. My daughter's Jewish now. And,
Yeah, that one Jew.
Yeah, well, so, Ivanka counts too because she converted. But
like Ben Carson, his black friend. So, he's,
Ben Carson is like,
he knows so many, everyone loves him.
oh my goodness.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. I know.
Looks like a lot of people in the live chat think that it was maybe more of a distraction or planned.
The whole bombing Syria, yeah, I think that's absolutely. And Lady Goth says he's going to need therapy after this term. I mean, honestly, I think a president of any president might help to have therapy while you're president because the kind of decisions you have to make. I mean, I don't want to say that they need,
They
be
should have gone through.
prescribed
They
things,
should
but-
all go through psychological testing.
They
and
Well, there's
should.
that,
There's
but
so much more that you have.
I don't know.
we have
I
to
feel
do
like
to
you
do
should
better.
be able to talk to someone who can't leak it to the press. I don't know.
Like Tony Soprano had a.
Had Dr.
Exactly.
Melfi, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the arguments I saw on Twitter about Sean Spicer was, oh, come on, we all know what he meant. And I'm like, look, even if you knew what he meant, he's the spokesperson for the president. You shouldn't have to, again, using the air quotes, sorry, iTunes listeners, know what he meant. He has to say what he means and mean what you say.
Yes.
And he just does it. And it's so bad. And he's just marble-mouthed, really. And then everything that comes out, you're just like, he didn't really say that, did he? No, he did. Yeah.
I couldn't believe when I heard it this morning. I thought this can't be true.
Because I read it and I'm like,
Well, I read it too, and I went back to
I'm like,
watch
this
it.
can't
and
be
then,
as bad as they're saying.
right.
Oh no, it's worse.
And I listened to it. I'm like, oh my god, he really did. He really did just say that. I just wonder how long he's going to last.
Well, no one else is going to take the job right
I
now.
know, but it just feels exhausting
and
thinking
as long
about
as
it's only been 2
Pelosi
months.
keeps saying that he needs to step down, Trump's going to keep him.
Oh, yeah,
So she needs to do the opposite.
Yeah.
She should be like, Sean, you're
He's the
doing
best
great.
ever.
She should just invite him to lunch.
Yeah.
Basically.
They should become
and just,
besties.
But maybe he can be the Easter Bunny again this year. And
Yeah.
Speaking of
The
Easter,
White
I don't
House.
know. Maybe this is something that my mother, who I said is very politically minded, she said that she read that Melania, who's supposed to be in charge of the whole Easter festivities
Mm-hmm.
for the White House, has been behind on doing that, and that normally Easter's on Sunday.
Right.
Correct.
And they're going to be having their Easter festivities and egg hunt on Monday. Did you guys hear this?
although I think it usually is on Monday
Is it
in the
usually on
past.
Monday?
Yeah,
Are you
I
sure?
think it was
Okay.
something else I'd read about that they weren't ready for the Easter egg roll, but they usually do it for like the school kids and everybody the day after on that Monday.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. And
But I think there
hadn't
was
heard
something else that I don't remember exactly what it was. Something that she was behind on
wasn't
with the
prepared
Easter egg
for.
roll. Yeah. That
And
there
also,
was,
did they not celebrate? I forget what it is now. Seder or
Seder?
Seder for
Is that
Passover?
right? They also didn't celebrate that.
yeah,
I
I didn't
mean-
see them on the.
I mean, that, let's not,
Yeah.
who's surprised that they didn't have a Seder
I
in
mean,
the White House?
Obama, the
Did a hu-
so-called Muslim,
did a huge one last year, and it was on Twitter. And
Exactly.
then this year it was a small group, and Trump was even in it.
yeah.
Well, I think an unofficial quote from the president was, "We'd have a Seder, but I can't find any Jew food around here." But anyway, that's unofficial. There's some great comments in the chat. Portal Player says that, and welcome, Portal Player. I haven't seen you there before. I believe the missile strike was planned with the Russian government. They did no damage with 60 missiles. Again, it's a distraction. I mean, they did a little damage, but I know what you're saying. It's
Right,
not
not
like
very
a
much.
significant. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't, as the Gap Band say, drop a bomb on them,
Mm-hmm.
literally. How can they fire 59 missiles that do almost no damage? Well, that's a great question. Probably on
But
purpose.
when you tip off
you know?
everyone that you're supposedly bombing beforehand.
Right.
Yeah. So everybody in really bad aim, says Lady Goth. Everyone in the chat, please
Melania
continue. Everyone continue contributing in there. And if you're listening or watching after the fact, please tweet us at Trump Report ABTV. Now, it's time once again for our weekly segment, which is apparently going to continue to be a weekly segment, Scott. I know you and Chelsea were holding out hope that it wasn't. It's time for more Gorsuch and such. And he's in now. So now we have to start talking about some of the cases that he's going to
Right.
and, we won't get too bogged down in legalese. I know that you're legally minded. Chelsea's a recovering lawyer. So we'll talk about these things in sort of, very basic. Let's put it this way. We'll talk about them in like Judge Judy law terms.
Well, can we just mention that we did talk about this on the show last week, and I said that they were going to do the nuclear option, that Democrats are going to filibuster, Republicans are going to do the nuclear option, and he would be in. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened.
That's exactly
so
what
there were no
happened.
surprises. But again, it is very disappointing. And as I troll Mitch McConnell on Twitter all the time,
Which is great.
and I basically, had said, and it's not really for him because I know he's not actually reading them, but it's for other people, is that this does ruin sort of democracy, takes it away, because now, this point forward, even on the progressive side, now whenever there's a Democratic president and Democratic majority in the Senate, they're now going to be able to have very ideologically left as far as possible and right as far as possible. It does not have to meet in the middle, and it's bad for democracy overall. This is a short-term win for Republicans, but a long-term loss for democracy and for us as a people in a country, and it's really really disappointing that they did that.
Who started rolling the snowball down the hill? Harry Reid.
Harry Reid started, and I will always say that, and I've said it back then, that was wrong, but the Republicans took that and opened that door all the way to which they did not have to do, and they did. And again, they also continued it by not even giving hearings to Merrick Garland last year. So to me, they were more in the wrong than the Democrats were, because they had an opportunity to have had hearings for Merrick Garland. They did not. And then they used this nuclear option, which is now going to basically destroy the decorum of the Senate. And now we're going to have more extreme and more partisan. And now we've politicized Supreme Court justices now from here on out, because now they're basically politicized, and it's really, really bad and very disappointing. But again, not surprising.
No, not surprising. And I mentioned Harry Reid just to illustrate that it's already both sides are guilty of this, and it's going to get much worse.
No, it's going to get worse. Democrats were not completely innocent, and I've said that from the beginning, but Republicans were worse and made it worse, and now we're down a very bad slippery slope of a path here. So
when the option was used in 2013, I believe it was, do you remember by whom, which side?
Well, it was for Harry Reid, and the Democrats did it because they were claiming, not for Supreme Court justices, they stopped short of that, but for federal judgeships and other things that they claimed that Republicans were holding up approving Obama's appointees. So they did it for that, which I knew at the time was not the smartest choice. They felt it was a way to be able to stop gumming up the works by Republicans. And now Democrats have taken that further, and now they did it for the Supreme Court option, which now will be a permanent thing for both sides going forward.
So that'll be fun going forward. But what we have
Very
in the, I guess starting next week, they're going to hear a bunch of cases, the SCOTUS, as it were. One of the cases that he's going to hear is Trinity Lutheran Church versus Pauley. And I won't get too bogged down in this, but the state of Missouri provides grants to help nonprofit organizations resurface their playgrounds with rubber from recycled tires. Sounds great. Sounds definitely like something that even progressives would be like, great, I love the recycled tire aspect. And the goal is to provide safer play areas for kids. However, Missouri denied a grant to the licensed preschool and daycare center at Trinity Lutheran solely because it's a church. So, Missouri said the grant would violate separation of church and state. The article I read said it really just violates a prior Supreme Court precedent. So these are the kind of things that are basically going to put him to the test right away. How he interprets the law, how he interprets, the letter of the law, or is he one of those, the spirit of the law. And I think we'll see pretty quickly how he rules in this. And I don't know. I mean, I completely supportive of the idea of separation of church and state, but at the same time,
that's
I'm
fundamental.
like, but I'm like, oh, well, it'd be all right if these kids had a playground, but then I don't know what happens if you make that exception.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, on one hand, you're like, well, it's for the kids. You do
I
think
love
that,
these kids
and
have
you
a
want
playground.
them to have a playground.
And it's a secular activity, I guess.
Yeah, so you could look at it that way, but then, like you're saying, what is that for the next thing? Now, is that an inch further to now? What are we now?
Like the little bit that Harry Reid did.
Right, and then now we're opening the door wider to have that religion be, that infiltrated with state, and that is a very fundamental constitutional separation, and we've already been blurring the line with Republicans and the conservative agenda, trying to bring religious stuff into our political and everyday stuff. 10 Commandments being posted in public parks, and so it is a slippery slope. But it is kids, and it is hard to say no to that. But we have to be careful too.
Right, and we know how Gorsuch. Okay, I can't think of the word, ruled, or I guess you would say, or decided with the Hobby Lobby proceedings. So you would think that he would support the church, but given that he is a textualist, so to say, and all about the Constitution, I'm actually hoping, even though it's about the kids, I'm thinking longer term and bigger picture, that he rules in favor of sticking to the Constitution and the Establishment Clause.
Right. Well, like I said, that's the interesting thing is that the expectation is that he probably would side with them, but maybe he's going to surprise everyone, including Trump. So it'll be interesting to see.
Right.
One that I feel like is a little bit more cut and dried is Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado versus Colorado. There's supposed to be a period in my notes. This is basically about an individual's right not to be forced by the government to act in violation of religious beliefs. Basically, I don't want to bake a cake for a gay wedding, so I shouldn't have to. And I feel like this is certainly one of those ones that's well left up to the states. You know, if the states feel like, yeah, you should have to, well, then I don't know what to tell you, to do. You know, I guess you can try not to, but if the states tell you have to, but at the same time, if somebody's just like, I don't know, would you want a cake from somebody that doesn't want to make it for you? That's where it comes down to for me. Yeah.
I mean, you have other places you can go to, and it's a tough line there. Saying you're forced to make a cake for someone, but then again, where does that lead to?
Right,
because
exactly.
now if you're saying I have religious reasons why I can't bake a cake for a gay couple, is it then I can't bake a cake for religious reasons for an interracial couple, for
for somebody who voted for Hillary, I don't want to bake a cake for them.
Someone of a different religion, they don't for a Muslim.
Muslim cakes.
Where's that go to? So I, on one hand, I understand the freedom of a business owner to refuse service, sort of like you have on the door, no shirt, no shoes, we're not, but it's also very difficult when you're starting to say, because it's for blatant reasons, because of someone's sexual orientation or race or religion or gender, and that makes it a very difficult thing when that's sort of enshrined in the Constitution as well, the 14th Amendment, and so it's a hard one, and I don't think it should actually be left up to states. It really should be federal, like marriage equality was really, to me, a federal thing, and really, my opinion, if we're getting further off track, but marijuana too should be a federal thing. We need to work on that with Schedule 1 and not have these piecemeal things in different states and have a federal law that's different. It's just,
well, I think that's the fundamental problem.
There's too many layers of things.
Marijuana is that there is the federal law. If there were the different states' laws, that would be fine. But there's all superseded by federal law. That's what I'm saying.
So that's what makes it difficult. And that was sort of like marriage equality too. You couldn't have one state having one thing and another state having something else, and the federal law having something else. And that comes to this with baking a cake for someone. So, I mean, I get on this one, it's just a state issue of Colorado, but it is a wider issue that really affects everyone.
No, I mean, the precedent set by this decision will obviously have repercussions.
It will, because then that'll be the next thing, and then it'll be the next thing from that. If passes in favor of someone's religious liberties and freedoms to make that decision.
I think it's going to be an important case if they even decide to. I guess they're still making a decision.
Yeah, they're still making. These are ones that seem likely.
They're on the docket, but they haven't made the decision yet.
Yeah, because what we find determines or what constitutes illegal discrimination based on sexual orientation. I mean, that's going to be a hard line. That's going to be important. And I think that Gorsuch, based again on his past ruling with Hobby Lobby, that he is going to probably rule in favor of the guy who feels like it's his religious preference not to make the cake. And I hope that that's not what is determined. And at the same time, you would think that the company itself, I don't know if he was the owner of the company or just an employer.
Right.
Because, I mean, employee, because if he were an employee, then I would think that the owner would say, okay, we'll have someone else make the cake. Like, how could it be?
Right, which is, certainly a solution to it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's not, I don't feel an owner can. Maybe if it's someone personally that works there, then you can figure out someone else that might not have that issue. But it's difficult to then say an owner can refuse that, because where does that end? Where does that end? And now where's that end in other states? And then where's that end? And then we're back in lawsuit.
To justify like all anti-gay discrimination in the future, which it would be really unfortunate.
Right, and just more lawsuits and just again continuing, because something else will pop up then.
Well, in the YouTube chat, DVD78 wants us to know, I'll eat any kind of cake. So that's really what it comes down to.
Right.
And look, that's what it comes down to. You're making a delicious cake.
Right.
You know what? You're going to take somebody's money.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You're taking their money. Why wouldn't you take their money? I get the.
I mean, I guess I guess I can think of devil's advocate, the situation where in certain communities, if you're known as, oh, that's the bake shop that makes them gay cakes, then maybe other people will not go there.
I bet you the cake is way better if they're making.
I know, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Because they're gonna ask for a better cake.
They're gonna have the best cake. So
yeah,
I think you're gonna want to shop there.
And then so sort of talking about all these things in terms of different states' laws, we saw I believe today we saw that North Carolina is going to have another go at it and try and outlaw same-sex
Which
marriage.
that won't happen.
No, I know, but it's like
it's kind of silly to even try.
So you get the NCAA championship,
right?
You get to turn the page on the bathroom law.
Right.
You finally get past everything,
So,
and then a week later you're like, okay, just kidding. We're gonna try.
Let's
and go
try
the
something else that we
Yeah.
can do that'll irritate people. It's stupid, anyways. That it's not going to happen. It's already been decided. It's a federal thing, and not to mention they have a Democratic governor now in North Carolina that would make sure that any of that was vetoed. So it's a waste of time. It's nice to have the attention, and upsetting for some people to have the attention, but it's not going to go anywhere.
No, I know, but it's just sort of like
They won't
I
give
guess
up.
people just feel emboldened. They're like, no, this is the time.
Well,
to...
they do now that you have Republicans in control in Washington, and now you have Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. Now they feel like, oh, now we might as well just go back and try to do whatever discriminating things we can do again.
Yeah, look at the
but
rest of the world.
It's ridiculous.
Something we alluded to earlier, Steve Bannon, who we talk about a lot on the show, was removed from the National Security Council. And it was. I read about this. There was a great article. Bad week for Steve Bannon. So this was like one of several things that happened. It was in no small part due to butting heads with Jared Kushner. And so, maybe there is something to the he doesn't trust Jews that we hear a lot about him. Steve Bannon also argued against striking at Syria. I think actually it probably has a lot more to do with that. When it came down to go time, he was like, no, you don't want to do this.
Don't get involved.
And I don't think Trump wanted to hear that. And I don't know. Maybe he just finally took a look at him and was like, I can't be photographed with this guy. So,
I don't think he would show up in photographs though. So
right, that's true. It's like a vampire. I don't know for sure. I don't know if he casts a reflection.
Right. So
that's
you
a
see
great
him in the
question.
mirror.
So if anybody's ever actually seen Steve Bannon's reflection, please let us know.
Right.
The
Shadow
White
or
House
a mirror.
claimed that this was planned, though. He was just going to be there to keep an eye on Mike Flynn, and we were going to get rid of that.
Right.
That doesn't sound
And that he was going to
accurate.
mess up everything essentially, and then once he did,
Yeah.
then he could walk away. So.
So just about the fact that Steve Bannon isn't on the National Security Council, Scott, your reaction to that news when you heard it?
I mean, it's great news. If I could do a handstand, I would have. Because he shouldn't have been there to begin with, and it was inappropriate for him to be there. So it's good that he's out of that. But it's still scary that he was there long enough to get a lot of the secrets and the information and things, the inner workings of what was going on around the world. But yeah, he had no business being there. So I'm actually surprised it was this quick. But again, I
Yeah,
guess
I'm
I shouldn't be
surprised by
surprised
that.
with anything in the Trump administration anymore.
Well,
People come and go so fast now.
The thing that I'm surprised about is definitely that Sean Spicer's still there. That was not
Right.
That's not a today thing.
No, that was way back too. I agree, but we'll see how
Yeah.
long it lasts now after
Yeah.
today.
They can't find anyone who wants a job.
No,
I'm
it's
telling
true.
you.
They can't find anyone decent to do any of these jobs.
I'm trying to think of who would want to do that job, and we already said what an awful job it is, but it's like there's got to be somebody in
Stupid
that
enough.
White House that feels
Omarosa. Why
they
not?
just
Omarosa
feel,
or Kellyanne
but
Conway,
they
she's
just
great
feel,
at lying.
They
so.
feel like they could handle it. They're like, oh, he just doesn't do a good job,
Yeah.
Let me, I don't know, but anyway, so
But the Bannon not being on the
Yeah.
National Security Council, I was going to mention. I think that there's some deep internal feuding
There is.
that's going on that we know, but there's more to it that we obviously don't know. And I think it's like a little brother-sister war within this whole little family that's going on. I mean, they'll take shots at each other whenever they can, and then they try to make it look like everything's okay to the outside world. Because, Breitbart afterwards was writing these horrible articles about Kushner. They've written horrible articles about, other Republican Congress people. And I just think there's this whole internal feud, and we're only getting a tiny bit, and then we see the backlash with Bannon being removed, but we're not
right.
we're not privy to it all.
Meanwhile, anyone who used to write for Breitbart and left while Steve Bannon was there has plenty of things to say.
Yeah,
about,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I was going to say there was actually a great little cartoon editorial in the back of the LA Times on this past Sunday, and this is about the second or third time they've done that with all of Trump's people, and it's really interesting, and people could definitely look that up, just online
LA Times,
and find
you
it.
said?
Yeah, they had the Sunday Editorial, and it's like this over-the-top cartoon about all the infighting of all the characters that are involved in just the over-the-top caricatures of everybody, and they have Bannon, and that was the thing with Priebus and Bannon being sort of these dual chief of staff type roles. It makes it very difficult because they're such opposites. You have the sort of the regular guy that's the party guy with Priebus, and you have the outsider, way alt-right, isolationist,
Alcoholic.
nationalist.
Isn't he an
So you have two very different sides there trying to duel for the same attention and getting the same kind of information from one person. And it's not going to work.
I don't know if he's an alcoholic,
I
that's
just heard
allegedly,
that.
but I do know he looks like a drifter. So, that's...
He always looks so disheveled.
Well, yeah, and that's, and this is now when he has this job, which is, arguably one of the most professional jobs in the country. So this is how he cleans up.
Right.
So this, of course, has given me the idea, Scott, that we're going to have to, and not that I'm ignoring you, Brooke, but you're not here every week. We're going to have to start a pool for who the next person to, again with the air quotes. Sorry, iTunes. To resign, but be forced
resign
out.
or recuse
themselves. And I mean, look, there are a
Mm.
lot of very valuable candidates. There was talk about how pissed Trump was at Priebus only a few weeks ago. So he's still on the hot seat.
He's on thin ice.
Bannon's there, and Bannon reportedly wanted to resign after this happened, but got talked out of it by some big donor, some big GOP donor, which was like, no, we bought this. We need you to be there to represent our interests. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to imagine. I mean, if you had to pick somebody, I don't want to put, this is not an official wager. I'll ask you both, but maybe we'll start an official pool next week. Who do you think would be the most likely to be out first?
Well, after today, I would say Spicer.
I was going to say voluntarily?
It's no. Just actual
out?
leaving the job. Whether they say they resign, whether they actually resign, whatever it is, person to no longer have the job. And let's say have no job in the administration, not, to fail upward to vice president or something. So.
when
who knows?
Over.
Yeah.
But,
Pence is going to realize that he has to be in rooms with so many women, and that makes him so uncomfortable.
Right, he can't alone.
Well,
Again, that's a whole episode that we can do about how Pence doesn't trust himself around women.
No.
Or does he just not trust women to be able to control themselves when you're such a handsome devil
That's
as
true.
Mike Pence?
These
are all questions we'll have to get to the bottom in the future.
Or any Betty Crocker product or Mrs. Butterworth.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to judge. I don't want to judge, but I am going to judge anybody who calls their wife mother. It's the
Wait,
creepiest
what?
thing.
Yes, that's what he calls his wife, mother. I like to joke that on Twitter all the time. I say that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
this is for sure.
This is
you
legitimately and
that is disgusting.
It's
not in bed, just regular.
Oh,
I'm sure all the time.
To be fair,
like mommy.
To be fair,
maybe it's mommy in bed.
I've never been in bed with Mike Pence. I'm sure he's never been in bed with a man.
Actually, I wouldn't be so sure about that one.
Do you think he went through one of those gay conversion camps?
I think he's very, very deeply closeted, and either he's avoided at all costs or he has on the side, because someone that uncomfortable with themselves is definitely a ripe candidate.
And that's why he's uncomfortable around women. That's why he likes.
Has he said why he calls her mother?
Oh, see, that's a thing.
It's like
that's
a
like
term
an
of
older.
endearment.
It's
like an old-fashioned.
Is that like a Southern thing or something?
He's from Indiana.
No, it's like an old-fashioned term
of
endearment for
very
your wife.
old-fashioned.
And they call her with the kids and everything.
Like,
That makes me think of like what's that Bates Hotel show? What?
Psycho. Well, Psycho's the movie.
Yeah.
Bates Motel was the TV show. Yeah. Well,
where he's like in love with his mother.
It's very old-fashioned.
He's got some
term of endearment.
Oedipal complex
but
going on.
We definitely got off the topic.
But yeah,
and maybe we can put an outside vote in for Mike Pence to be gone because he just doesn't trust himself. But Scott, and then I'll ask you, Brooke, who do you think is most likely to?
Well, I was just saying earlier, I think Spicer just now he's really on the hot seat. I know Priebus was on there last week. Kellyanne Conway actually sort of the one that's floating in the background that they, reprimanded, and then she's very quiet now,
Yeah, she is hanging
not
back.
really doing much. So I wonder how much longer it'll be before either she leaves because she's sort of has a lower role right now, or what's going to happen with her, because I feel like she's also the surprise candidate if you had like the I guess like the basketball.
She's like from the play-in game in the NCAA.
You bring her in at the end.
She's the 16th seed,
right? And then she might actually be that surprise one that either goes first, and we're not even thinking about it because she's so kind of off the radar right now.
Yeah, no,
but she's still there.
Well, Brooke, I'll let you share your thought
first.
first.
For a while, I thought for sure Spicer would be gone like much sooner because he just kind of kept screwing up. But I actually think that he and Trump are very similar, and Trump kind of likes how he's screwing up because it still somewhat represents his little devil on his shoulder. So I don't think it's going to be Spicer. I'm actually a little concerned. I'm not concerned, but about Bannon, because there has been some unequal footing where they've stood, like his being taken off of the NSC, and then now it seems like he's taking more of a backseat role more recently. And they're butting heads a little bit.
He's definitely been marginalized, and the fact that Ivanka's husband Jared Kushner does not like him, that's probably going to be the end of it.
And I think that Trump's loyalty is probably more so with Jared.
Yeah, I see the Spicer situation two ways. The first is that he may have already paid the ultimate penance he's going to have to pay. He had to go on CNN today. He had to talk to Wolf Blitzer. And Wolf Blitzer,
the headquarters of fake news,
corrected his pronunciation of Assad, which I'm making a point.
What's he saying, Assad?
He was saying the first name wrong, and that's the point I'm going to make. Is I'm not even trying. I know better, and there's a White House press secretary. You could probably get.
I think you could get around, and you could also have someone give it phonetics on a sheet for you before you go out there and talk.
Man,
put it on the prompter.
Yes, exactly.
To be taken out to the woodshed by Wolf Blitzer, yikes! That has to be humiliating for him. Fake news. Really, took him to school. But at the same time, that could just be the beginning of the end.
Right.
I feel like the fact that was another one where I saw the clip. I'm like, well, this has to be a mistake. Sean Spicer didn't go on CNN. Oh my God, he was on CNN. And
I can see that where you get that.
He doesn't have long to last. I don't think. Regardless, I think either at some point he's just going to be out because he's done, or he's going to go back and just have the simple life of being an Easter bunny and not have the stress anymore.
The Easter bunny doesn't have that much stress.
They just, have a little bit with the kids, and then they're done.
Yeah.
They hang up the costume, they can walk away.
Not that Easter bunny and Jared Kushner. I don't know where I got this, but what
You
is Jared?
I can't wait to see the way that you get to that.
I went to school with Jared.
Did you really?
Yes.
I wish you'd mentioned this sooner.
Right?
He's a couple years ahead of me, or was a couple years ahead of me. I was 05, he's 03, I want to say.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 03, I think, 02, 03. And we actually had 2 government classes together.
Did you ever talk to him?
Yes, I talked to him briefly. He was dating a girl at the time.
Not Ivanka?
Not Ivanka, but a blonde, and I won't say her name. But
he has a type.
Reese Witherspoon?
She looked a lot like Ivanka, I will say.
Yeah, he has a type.
I mean, there's a lot of guys who that would be their type.
I was kind of better friends with her than him. But
the girl, the girl he was dating, not Ivanka.
Not Jared.
Yeah.
And he seemed like a smart, decent guy. He was very quiet back then. We actually took foreign policy together.
And you expected that one day he would be one of the most trusted advisors to President Donald Trump.
I never expected that.
Because look, we all expected in 2005 that Donald Trump would be president one day, and that he would have his family running around the White House.
Yeah. But we both have the same degree.
Well, look at that.
Look at that.
So
yeah.
you
could be that advisor.
One day
to Donald
you could
Trump.
be an
I have
advisor.
the same qualifications as Jared Kushner.
We'll just have your mom become president.
My dad didn't go to prison.
You said your mom's politically minded.
Right, so she'll become president, and you can be her advisor.
Would she like to announce on this show that she's running?
I'm going to work on her.
All right, so
there you go.
The next time we have you back, we're going to get an update as to whether or not we have that.
And then you'll be the advisor for your mom when she wins in 2020.
I'm going to make sure she really gives me a really good position.
Let's get to some of the audience interaction that we've had over the last couple weeks, not the people in the chat. A couple of you have let me know that you don't like the opening jokes in the show. The problem is that I kind of really like structuring the show that way. It's really quick, and then we go. And, all I can promise is that I'll try to make them funnier. I think that it came after
Do they not like that they're not like always political?
No, I think that they just don't like that. I think
it's your thing, though,
it's
man.
the caliber
it's
of the jokes. I have these jokes for something else I write for, and when I have them left over, I'm like, no, I'm going to use them. I try to use ones that I think are funny, but you know what? For Ty J and LDC, I will try to step up the caliber of the jokes. That is what I am going to do for you guys, and I hope you're both guys. And if you're not, I am definitely marginalizing
You're guys
gender.
in the general sense.
Yes, use guys.
Use
the way that we
yes.
say in New York, where I'm from. So on next week's show, Chelsea will be back with us, And as we mentioned last week, our friends Jeff and Tim from based in LA will be here. They'll give some opposing viewpoints, some conservative viewpoints, and can't wait to hear what they have to say.
I love it now that he's in office.
About Sean Spicer having resigned at some point in the next week. I'll just call it now, and if I'm right, then we'll play the clip back, and if I'm wrong, we'll just pretend it never happened. But Brooke, we will definitely have to have you back on
Yes.
soon.
Yeah.
I don't want it to
I
seem
love
like
coming.
we can only have one lady on the panel.
Right.
We're gonna have both you and Chelsea in the very near future, but
There's
in a
enough
couple-
That's
room.
too many Latinas at once, apparently.
right? Yeah,
It's too much estrogen when
Hey.
I'm here too, and there's
President Trump would say that's too many bad hombres for one
Yeah,
show.
exactly.
So, but we will have you back, and as we said before, it's Brooke Solis TV
got
at
it.
Brooke Solis TV, and that's with a Z. And Scott Moore, of course,
Yes.
at SMan80. I'm Christian Blatt at Christian DMZ. And shameless plug once again for my personal podcast, the Blattcast, BLADTCAST.com. We will see each and every one of you next time. Thanks so much for watching, everyone.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.